could start my life all anew if I had you.
This is a Blue Book road trip of significant importance. I'm Steve. There's Ryan. Here's our buddy, the star, Michael Cochran.
I'm no star, but I'm glad to be here.
And some of you fans of ours out there have asked Mr. Cochran a few questions, and Ryan's going to go ahead and ask Michael.
Okay, so in reference to Les's accident in January 1948, when he shattered his right arm and elbow, how did he decide to have his arm set that he could continue to play?
Well, you know, he almost lost the arm, and the elbow joint was destroyed, and they didn't have prosthetics in those days.
Right.
So he wanted to still be able to play guitar, and his idea was, he told the surgeon, put my forefinger in my belly button of his right arm, and whatever the angle turns out to be, that's how I want my arm to be set, because that is what he needed to be able to play the guitar. And anyone who ever met Les, if you extended your right hand to him to shake hands, he couldn't do this. He couldn't straighten his arm.
Right.
He went through the rest of his life with his arm in a permanent, fixed position. So if you extended your right hand to shake hands with him, what you got was his left. But basically, he just wanted to be able to do this, to be able to. So that's, you know, it's a pretty practical, simple answer. You know.
Okay, what was Les's inspiration for the original signature Les Paul guitar design?
The inspiration for, you're talking about the solid body, the Les Paul Standard from 1952. The idea to have it be an archtop guitar, well, first of all, one of Les's requirements when he was working with Gibson in the design of that instrument, which was a cooperative effort, but a combination of Les's ideas and the experienced pros at the Gibson company, who really knew what they were doing when it came to designing guitars. I'm not sure Les really knew the ins and outs of guitar engineering and design. He had his ideas. But Mr. Berlin, who was the president of the Chicago Instrument Company, the parent of Gibson, had his own ideas, and Mr. Berlin had a collection of valuable violins, and he took Les into the vault where he kept these prized instruments and showed Les the arch top of the violin and suggested to Les that wouldn't this be a beautiful facet of your namesake guitar? And Les said, yes, it would. Please do that. Because what Les wanted was a guitar that was pretty.
Right.
He wanted a good-looking instrument, which is not to say that the early Fenders, which were being manufactured by then, were ugly. But Les wanted his guitar to be a cut above that flat-faced utilitarian look that the early Gibson or the early Fender had.
Right.
And the arch top was just the signature effect that accomplished that.
Okay. What do you believe is the most iconic individual Les Paul guitar in existence?
Well, in terms of his Gibson signature guitars, it would be the first two prototypes that Gibson made for him, the black one and the white one, which were flat tops, by the way. I'm not sure why they were flat tops. Maybe because they were prototypes, they didn't bother to put the arch top on them. They just wanted to say, Les, here's what we've come up with. What do you think? What's your input? But he believed those two guitars sounded a little bit better than the production models that came after them. But I think to him personally, the most important guitars were what he called his clunkers. Les was always changing things on his guitars, whatever he was playing. You know, he wound his own pickups. He tried every different wiring configuration that could be imagined in developing controls for those pickups. And you look at his clunkers, he cut so many different size holes in the top that he eventually just put a metal plate in there. And he wanted to move his pickups up and down, the angles of the pickups. He was always experimenting to find out what sounded best. And by having 3 of these Epiphones, which were his clunkers, he could make changes in one and compare it to another to see the difference. You know, if you were making these changes in one guitar, by the time you made the change, how would you reference what you changed from? You wouldn't be able to.
Right.
So I think those 3 clunkers were very, very important to him in terms of his role as an inventor, as an audio experimenter, and not discounting the fact too that he recorded all of his hit records with the clunkers, even after his endorsement deal with Gibson.
Okay, well, that wraps up another Blue Book, I guess, university session, you might call it. Michael, thank you very much for that information. I'm sure a lot of the people looking at this had no idea.
Yes, I could leave my old life behind, all of my old pals, I wouldn't mind. I want to thank you, Steve, for coming here today. I appreciate
this has been
Thank
great.
you, Ryan. I
We're
appreciate
not
the attention.
quite done here. We got a couple other things to do. One of them is a guitar that used to belong to Les Paul, and we're going to take it out shortly.